Muy buenas tardes, señoras y señores. Como en cada emisión, es un gusto poderles saludar en este espacio que nos permite, como siempre, estar más cerca de todos ustedes. Gracias por estarnos acompañando. Desde ya les puedo decir, quédense con nosotros porque tenemos una invitada de lujo en esta tarde-noche que usted no puede perderse. Mi nombre es Verónica de León Regil y les doy la más cordial bienvenida a Invitados BI. Bueno, y antes de comenzar, como siempre, quiero darles las gracias por estar pendientes de las redes sociales de Banco Industrial, porque a través de ellas ustedes se enteran de cada una de estas transmisiones. Y si están acá, agradecerles por haberse decidido unir, permanecer, estar presentes en cada una de ellas. Nuestro objetivo, como ustedes lo saben, desde que iniciábamos ya hace varios años, es brindarles contenido valioso para que vayamos juntos siempre hacia adelante. Y es que hoy vamos a platicar de un tema muy importante, algo que en definitiva se está viviendo a nivel empresarial y debemos tomarlo en cuenta, debemos analizarlo, debemos enfrentarlo y saber qué vamos a hacer con nuestras empresas, con nuestros equipos, con nuestro liderazgo en sí. Hoy en día las empresas enfrentan un entorno de cambio constante. La tecnología avanza a una velocidad agigantada, a una velocidad que, en propias palabras de los gerentes, de los líderes empresariales, supera hasta cierto punto la capacidad de adaptación de muchos de ellos y de sus equipos, dejando a los colaboradores desconectados y sin una dirección clara. El verdadero liderazgo transforma tanto a las personas como a las organizaciones. Y la pregunta de hoy es muy importante que usted se la haga y que la responda a conciencia. ¿Cree usted que está preparado para liderar la transformación de su equipo y de su empresa, para poder adaptarse a esta velocidad y lo que necesita su empresa para poder seguir creciendo? Pues hoy vamos a estar hablando y conociendo un poco más sobre este tema, y por eso nuestra transmisión de hoy se titula Transformación, sobrevivir o evolucionar. Y como en cada emisión tenemos a los mejores speakers con nosotros, y en esta tarde noche no será la excepción. Es un gusto para mí el poder presentarles a Corey Cogan. Ella es líder de práctica global de productividad de Franklin Covey. Estoy segurísima de que muchos de ustedes han escuchado hablar de ella. Se caracteriza por estar siempre compartiendo todo su conocimiento en torno a estos temas. Una mujer admirable con quien tendremos el gusto de poder conversar y compartir. Así que usted prepárese y vaya compartiendo este link a través de Facebook, a través de WhatsApp, a través de cualquier red social en la que usted nos esté sintonizando o quiera compartirlo con personas que estén interesadas en saber de este tema, porque hoy usted podrá crear un plan que ayude a su equipo a adaptarse, que ayude a su equipo a prosperar, podrá motivar y podrá guiar a todos los integrantes de su equipo, incluso en tiempos difíciles, y por supuesto poder hacer que su empresa crezca, que se convierta en una empresa que es líder en su industria. Así que yo en este momento le digo, por favor, papel y lápiz a apuntar y a recordarles que en este gran personaje que nos acompaña hoy, Corey, estará en Guatemala en unos días. Yo ya les voy a dar la información. Estamos hablando nada más y nada menos que del 4 de noviembre. Ponemos en pantalla rápidamente nuestra dinámica porque ustedes saben que cuando tenemos personajes de esta talla, de talla mundial, no podemos quedarnos sin darles a ustedes un regalo, un agradecimiento por estar acá pendientes y estar aprendiendo todo lo que necesitamos sobre transformación, sobrevivir o evolucionar. Sí, señoras y señores, viene nada más y nada menos que Corey Cogan a Guatemala este 4 de noviembre a hablarnos de transformación, sobrevivir o evolucionar. Y ustedes tienen la posibilidad de ganarse 15 pases dobles para asistir a esta conferencia. ¿Qué es lo que tienen que hacer? Ahí está pantalla. Rápidamente, compartir en esta transmisión, mencionar en los comentarios por qué le gustaría asistir, y usted debe etiquetar a la persona con la que le gustaría asistir a este evento. Los ganadores estarán seleccionando a través de una herramienta, así que no pierda usted esta oportunidad. Ahí lo tiene, son 15 pases dobles. Es el 4 de noviembre, perdón, en el Westin Camino Real, y usted seguramente será uno de los ganadores de estas entradas. Señoras y señores, como siempre, al finalizar tendremos unos minutos para compartir con Corey algunas de sus preguntas, así que por favor no pierda esta oportunidad. Usted los puede dejar anclados, mejor dicho, en nuestros comentarios, y nosotros, por supuesto, le haremos llegar estas preguntas a nuestra invitada de lujo. Señoras y señores, la trayectoria de Corey es impresionante, y por más que tratemos de resumirla, se queda corta con lo mucho que tenemos para decir de ella. Se las voy a presentar y tengo que decirles, por supuesto, porque es un personaje que además de contar con más de 25 años de experiencia empresarial, Corey Cogan es vicepresidenta de Desarrollo de Contenido, autor de bestsellers y líder intelectual. Es experta en muchísimos temas, tanto en liderazgo como de productividad. Antes de que Corey se uniera a Franklin Covey, fue vicepresidenta ejecutiva de operaciones mundiales de Alpha Graphics Inc., en donde lideró la implementación global de ISO 9000 y también instaló el primer sistema de aprendizaje global de la empresa. Ha sido destacada en medios como Inc.com, Fast Company y Forbes.com. Apareció en el programa Today Show de NBC. En el año 2012 obtuvo un certificado de fundamentos de neurociencia por el Neuro Leadership Institute y fue, mejor dicho, reconocida como una de las 30 mujeres de negocios a observar en Utah por Utah Magazine. Así que, señoras y señores, es una mujer impresionante. Esto es solo un resumen de todo lo que Corey ha hecho. Y bueno, señoras y señores, esta pues obviamente va a ser una entrevista en inglés. No se preocupen porque ahí vamos a tener subtítulos para que ustedes puedan entender todo lo que platiquemos hoy con ella. Así que le damos la más cordial bienvenida a Corey, que nos está acompañando. Welcome, Corey. It's an honor to have you with us this afternoon in this special broadcast. How are you? Welcome to Guatemala.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm looking so forward to being there, Veronica. So thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
We are so happy to have you and to listen to everything you have to say to us today, because Corey, today's topic is really interesting. We are talking about survive or to evolve. We know that every organization deserves strong leadership that inspires trust and an environment where everyone can achieve great results. So tell us a little bit about what is the main difference between surviving and evolving in the business and personal context. Why not? Thank you.
Thank you. You know, a lot of organizations do just survive. And, you know, my reputation is to be very candid and, as we say, down to earth. And what we find in some organizations, candidly, is they think they're doing okay. The leadership thinks they're just doing okay. And they just go along. You know, they just keep going thinking we're doing fine. We don't have to change. And then you have things like the pandemic or these big things that happen. And we know that what happens with these companies and leaders who just think, no, we're doing fine. We don't have to worry about anything. That when you have these evolving changes that come along, like a pandemic, like new technology, like any transformation, that's when weaknesses get exposed, and then it's almost too late. It's like, because you were able to put Band-Aids on things that maybe had not been going well along the way. And so we're surviving. When you have a culture and leaders in an organization that understand that everything changes a lot, I mean, the world is changing every day now, and are proactively taking steps to have the organization look ahead, to keep up with changes and not be, the best word I can use is complacent. That's how you evolve, and are a visionary, that you look ahead and see what's happening 5-10 years, you know, from now. What is it that we need to do to be a great company then, not just today thinking, no, you know, everything's been working this way for 20 years. We're good.
I know. Corey, I think it's more common to see this kind of behavior in older generations, maybe. And if this is the case, how can the new generations convince the older ones to become more technological?
Well, it's not easy. I think that's, you know, there's no, as we say, magic bullet. You sort of hope there is. You know, I'm not a Gen Z person. I'm a young baby boomer, if you will. And I will say, we have to be careful not to stereotype. There's a lot of older the older generations, Gen X, baby boomers, that are very open-minded to the changes. I think that the younger generations really need to come at this with their own skill building. And I think leaders need to be very proactive about this. How do we help the individual contributors, the new people coming into the workforce, become more effective, become more trustworthy, become more responsible and credible, so that the leaders look at them, even the ones that don't want to change, and say, you know what, you make sense. We should be, moving on to something different. But a lot of times the culture is not helping the new generations. And I think this is global with all the research that I do, and what I've seen is that the young generations that are coming into the workplace are demanding development. They want to learn, and it's becoming part of how they choose an organization to work with. Obviously, we don't want to hire everybody, but there is a big talent war going on in the worldwide for good talent. And that good talent, we want to make sure the young people have the opportunity to learn. It's becoming a requirement for them. If you do that and help them build their credibility, then maybe the older generations will be willing to listen. The other thing that will make somebody change is pain. So unfortunately, going back to what I said before, when an organization is starting, of any sector, is starting to not be effective, whether it's for profit making or governmental or nonprofit, when they start to see things aren't going the way it's supposed to go and they're in enough pain, then they might start to evolve. Unfortunately, sometimes it's a little too late, or it takes a lot of work and a lot of heartache to get the organization to move to a new level.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Corey. And what do you think are the key factors driving the need for transformation in organizations? And how can leaders foster an environment of continuous change that it's needing today?
So those are two questions. So you might have to tell me the second one again. But
That's okay.
The what's fostering it? There's so many things. The pandemic now is a few years, but that ago, and we're still dealing with all of the things that changed globally and in the workforce. Thank God more people are healthy now, no matter what happens with COVID. But the point was, when COVID hit, the whole world and the whole way we work changed. So I've been working remote for many, many, many years. The pandemic did not change how I work, but a lot of organizations did not work remote. There was really, hybrid wasn't such a big word. That fostered all kinds of transformation around project management, around technology, because we had to change systems. We had to figure out how to work in this new way where you couldn't see people, particularly if you're a global company, et cetera. So that fostered a lot of transforming the world. Even today, it's trying to bring people back to the office. Do we need to bring people back to the office? We're still trying to figure that out. In addition to that, the technology. So the whole artificial intelligence explosion that's going on, and there's so much being done around that. People's fears around their jobs being replaced, which is actually a bit of a myth, because with the implementation of AI, it'll actually create more jobs out there in the workplace. So all the technological change that started first coming out of the pandemic, then you layer on the explosion of AI. It's a whole new everything. Everything has had to transform. Your second question, sort of the how, right? I mean, so what do leaders, how do we deal with change? We want to be careful to not make us change crazy, that we have an organization where we're creating a culture of, listen, every day we're going to change something. But you do need to be a culture of change. And I will tell you, it starts with leaders learning that all of the transformation requires the evolution of human capability. That when leaders understand that it's people who make or break their organization, now you start to set that leader apart as a great leader from every other leader out there. So that's the beginning of how you get to real transformation, when you have a leader who understands that they have to really focus in on the people to move the organization forward.
That's a really good point, Corey. And we have learned through the pandemic that a lot of good opportunities can come from bad things or from bad situations. But how can a leader that maybe is living the worst situation ever in his life in the business, how can a leader have that positive view or point of view between such a bad situation? What can you tell them?
Well, again, it's how do you lead, we say, during turbulent times.
Mm-hmm.
Things are bad. The whole idea of effectiveness, sometimes people say, and I said before, how do we make the younger generations more effective? And I say that about all of us. And in the introduction, my work as a thought leader, some people call me a subject matter expert. And I like to say I'm more of a laboratory experiment because, as you said in your introduction, I'm a former executive vice president of worldwide operations. I'm an operational leader in executive leadership. I have had to get through bad times, like everybody else. The economy changes, all that kind of thing. And I'll go back to what I said. When a leader starts to see that it's people who drives the organization, and through turbulent times aren't good, instead of trying to force, like, just get over it, just do your job, just, I know we have problems, but just keep going, versus some of the more skills of effectiveness. And we're all about, and let me just say, we're all about results. At the end of the day, we need to, and I'm all about that. We need to hit a result, but it's how you hit that result that leaders need to be aware of. And effectiveness or soft skills, or now they call them power skills, like empathy for their people, listening to their people, developing their people. All of these things are skills of effectiveness that some leaders I can't deal with that. I just need them to do the job. But those that do and those kinds of activities or have those kinds of skill sets in the worst of times, you will, like you said, good things come out of not so good things. And when you lead in a way that invites people to volunteer their best efforts, that's how you get through bad times. And as a leader, you have to take a deep breath. And we say at Franklin Covey, you need to work in your circle of influence, not this thing. I can't do anything about the fact that things are bad, but what can I do to help my people, to help the organization come out of it and move farther faster? Excellent. So those are a couple of ideas.
I know they are really good ideas. Thank you very much. Can you tell us a little bit more about the barriers that prevent companies and individuals as equal from evolving and how to overcome those barriers, Corey, please?
So there's a few. One of the things, when we say bad times or times of change, let's talk about change for a moment. And I always like to say, because change is hard, right? And we know that. If we try to change ourselves, we know that's hard. If we try to change somebody else, it's harder. If we try to change a lot of people, it's almost impossible, but it's not really. Again, it's a leader's mindset. It's the way a leader thinks about their world, their people, as I've said already a couple of times. I always like to say that I think the person who deals with change the easiest is the one who has the change in their head. So when a leader says, listen, we're going to, buy this other company, or we need to, create new products or whatever it might be. And they're like, make everybody do that. And they're like, why don't they do it? Why don't they change? And the reason is because the leader has the change in their head. They can see it. And they're like, why is this so hard? And they don't realize the idea of what has to happen with change, and how people have to go through what we call the change curve in order to be able to go through the disruption of change and deal with the emotions of that, and go through the adoption of trying out, like, okay, I'm in on the change, let me try it. And people not getting it right and feeling like that's not going to work, and they slide back. And so leaders, and then how do we get people practicing through the change and to a new place where we're now getting the return on investment from the change? So I think it's one of the things, one of the barriers is not understanding how change works, how it is a predictive pattern that when leaders understand that everybody doesn't see it as clearly as they do, that goes a long way in helping the organization move forward. So that's a barrier when change is not understood, and we just keep putting change after change on their people. The second thing, and that I would say is what I said before, is that the leader does not see their people as people. And so when they try to, Stephen Covey, called it the carrot and the stick. And we hear this all the time. But when you try to, I say in my New York English, beat people into doing something versus in this knowledge worker world, inviting people to volunteer their best efforts by seeing people, by understanding them, by being empathic with them, while demanding results. Because this is not a nice, let's just make this a nice place to work. It should be nice with the accountability of results as well. So those are the two main barriers that I see. Understanding change and the predictive nature of how to really make that good, that's a barrier. And this idea of, are we inviting people to not quiet quit, as we've heard those kinds of terms, but inviting people to volunteer their best efforts. And that takes new leadership skills, a new way of thinking that is not happening all over the world at this time.
Corey, that leads us to speak about maybe tough leadership. What does it mean to you to be a tough leader?
I think, and my colleagues might smile at this, I think I am considered a tough leader. What I really like to hear is that I'm tough but fair. Okay. Corey, she gets the job done. She helps us get the job done, but she takes care of us as well. She is transparent. She tells it like it is, but she's highly respectful. So that, again, leaders should be, we say it's really about purpose and performance. It's like you want people to volunteer their best efforts and at the same time not forget about accountability. And so, just a couple of things around that. People really need to be clear on what are the outcomes of the organization and what's my purpose towards that. So a job is not just a job. It's like, wow, I am making, a contribution. So as a leader, I'm tough, but I'm going to be really clear with where we're going, why we're going there, and why, no matter what level of work, listen, there's people that have jobs to just put food on the table. But even them, I want to impact, and leaders should want to impact those people so they see that it's not just a job, but they have a purpose towards what the mission or vision of the organization is. Am I delegating clearly so that people are headed in the right direction? Am I having one-on-ones with my people to make sure they feel seen and heard, but that we're also checking in on making progress towards the goals of the organization? So these are some of are we giving and receiving feedback? Are we talking about change? So these are am I a leader as a coach, not just telling them what to do, but helping them develop and come up with answers by themselves? So I say, when you say tough, I'm really tough. And I know there's a lot of leaders out there really tough. The greatest leaders are the ones that not only achieve results, but like I said, are helping their people get there along the way in a way that their people will go, hey, my leaders are tough. They're demanding. They have, we have, tough goals, but I want to show, they make me feel like I want to show up every day and do the work.
Corey, is it too difficult, or how do you manage to be, I don't know how to say it, maybe friendly with your team, but without losing the respect that you need to have from them?
So, yeah, very good question. And like I said, I'm a leadership experiment. I work on this all of the time. So the United States, it's known. I'm born and raised in New York City. New York City people have a little bit of a reputation, direct, to the point. I don't live in New York. I live on the other side of the United States in Arizona. And I always have to be careful because my default is do it because I said so. Just get the job. I mean, that's how that comes easiest to me. Mm-hmm. But I know it's not the way my people will respond well. And I have to work on that every day. And Stephen M. R. Covey, so Dr. Covey's son, is well known for his work around the speed of trust. And he has 13 behaviors of high trust people. A couple of them are to talk truthfully, demonstrate respect, confront reality, practice accountability, listen first. Those are just, a few of them. And those are the things that you have to do really well. What he also says is don't be careful about being a counterfeiter. If that translates, being fake, because I can say I demonstrate respect, but I am talking behind their back, or, I'm talking truthfully, but I'm, as we say, spinning or beating around the bush, kind of thing. So this is a constant, I want to say battle, but it's constant work. And it takes emotional intelligence, which is everything in today's world around being self-aware and self-managing, and then moving to social awareness and relationship management. That's Daniel Goleman's work. Those are the four things he used. For us at Franklin Covey, it's the private victory and the public victory. And so how self-aware am I as a leader to engage with people, like you said, in a way where I truly am, my character is causing me to demonstrate and authentically demonstrate respect while asking for results in a way, like you said, that's going to make people feel seen, heard, and safe. It's hard.
Yeah, I know it must be. Thank you, Corey, for all your answers. This is the moment where I stop asking, but we have a lot of questions from our audience. En este momento vamos a pasar a las preguntas del público. Yo sé que quisiera seguir platicando con Corey. La plática está muy, pero muy interesante, pero mucho de esto es lo que vamos a seguir conociendo el 4 de noviembre, cuando sea la presentación de Corey aquí en Guatemala. Recuerden que va a haber una traducción en simultáneo. No se preocupen, las personas que no hablan completamente el inglés van a estar ustedes escuchando en español toda la charla que Corey tiene para nosotros. Pero sí, por supuesto que tenemos preguntas del público para todos ustedes. Las vamos a poner en español, pero las voy a traducir al inglés para Corey. Así que, well, Corey, thank you for all this participation. We have a lot of questions from our audience. I'm going to read them first in Spanish, and then I'm going to translate them in English for you, okay? Are you ready?
Ready.
Thank you, Corey. So we are having here all the questions from the people that are in our audience. So here is the first one. Let me see, because I don't have the whole the whole question, and I have here the ¿por qué cree que los líderes son los que tienen que tener esta mentalidad para poder propiciar el cambio o la transformación? Aquí tenemos entonces la primera pregunta. Why do you think, Corey, that the leaders are the ones that have to have this mentality so that they can make the change or the evolve in the industry?
You know, for anybody, and if I understood the question correctly, it's how does, you know, why does a leader have to have that mentality, that mindset to do this? You know, what happens in a lot of organizations, and honestly, I say don't waste your money in an organization, when you hand leaders a list of competencies and say, here, you need to be good at setting goals, you need to do this, because we say you can check the box on that.
Mm-hmm.
We know what sets, from our research at Franklin Covey, we know what sets great leaders apart. The first thing is leaders are responsible for results. But again, we know leaders that have gotten results, I like to say, have left bodies along the way. They've sacrificed the people to get results. So that doesn't work on their own. There's actually 4 components. The second one is what they do. So this, you know, it could be this competency list. I need to do these things to get results. But that's not good enough. It's how they think. So they have to have this mindset, because I'm sure everybody on this, this call realizes this. There are leaders, as I said earlier, that their mindset is, I just need them to do their job. But the great leaders think differently about their people, about the challenges out there, and how the two work together. And so they have to have this mindset, even though it's not easy. It takes time for me to sit down and have one-on-ones with people and check in on their issues and all of that. It takes time, and it's like I said before, it's not my natural tendency. And I know the higher up you go in organizations, in most cultures, that as senior leaders, it's like, let's just get the job done. When the senior leaders who take the time to see their people as people, that mindset, so the results they get, what they do, how they think, and who they are character-wise, is an absolute necessity. Those 4 components are what sets great leaders apart. It just, you have to think differently about the world. And it's so interesting because the pandemic forced a lot of leaders to get it, that without their people, they could not move the business forward. Some of that is slipping back. Some leaders still know that. But like I said earlier, with AI and the fears around all of the change right now, more leaders need to have that understanding of what sets greatness apart if they're going to compete in the workforce, in the workplace.
Thank you, Corey, for that. Tenemos otra pregunta del público, la ponemos rápidamente en pantalla y vamos a ver de qué se trata. ¿Cuál ha sido su experiencia con empresas que quieren o estar pasando por una transformación cultural? ¿Cree que es igual para una transformación digital? Corey, what has been your experience with companies that are seeking or undergoing a cultural transformation? Do you think it's the same for a digital transformation?
In many ways, any transformation follows the same pattern.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn new things. So when we have to learn new things and there's a change, and again, we say digital transformation, that's been going on, for many years. Again, pre-pandemic, there was new things. And then with the pandemic, all kinds of new technology, and now artificial intelligence. With digital transformation, I'm going to keep going back to this. It's the people. And, again, in our work at Franklin Covey around change, it's the same thing. You have to be really clear on what this is really important. The leadership skills required to match what the whole organization culturally needs to know about how predictive change really is. Then the leaders have to have a set of skills to meet that predictive, what we say, change model. Are they explaining the changes and have what you need to understand what the change is, why it's happening, how it's benefiting the company, and how it's benefiting the people? I'll go back to what I said earlier. If you just say, hey, we're changing, just do it because I said so, that's a problem. So why the change? Why should I be interested in the change? How's it going to affect me? And then helping people through the disruption of it. It feels uncomfortable. And I'll tell you, a word around any transformation that's really key is shame. That people are uncomfortable with, wait, I can't do it. I don't know how to do, I'm afraid of artificial intelligence. So I feel ashamed. And that's a terrible emotion for people. And leaders need to make sure that they're there supporting them, clarifying what's going on, and having dialogues with them, not just dictating what to do. And like I said, helping people adopt and engaging with the people to get through the change, and then on to bigger and better things. Here's the punchline on digital transformation or any transformation. If leaders are good, and again, we have this predictive model of change. Once you know it, you can go through 8 changes and you will have a better experience with it. Your people have a ton of potential. If leaders help them get through the steps that I was talking about, it takes these people to a level of innovation. Mm-hmm. And these people, whether it's mid-level leaders, individual contributors, will start to see things in the digital transformation that you didn't even know the technology could do. And we're encouraging them to say, wow, look what it can do that we didn't even think about. And the return on investment becomes more and more and more. So digital transformation, any transformation, it all requires some of the same humanistic skills to get to a really great place.
Good to know, Corey. Thank you. We have a few more questions
right
from the audience. So, vamos a poner la primera o la siguiente, mejor dicho, en pantalla. Vamos a poner otra pregunta. ¿Es posible la transformación en organizaciones cuya naturaleza de su cultura debe ser muy estructurada, como la de empresas en la industria financiera? Corey, is transformation possible in organizations where the nature of their culture needs to be very structured, such as companies in the financial industry?
I think, my experience, my experience is that culture is culture across organizations. So I can't name names, but I was recently in the UK with the senior leadership of one of the biggest financial institutions in the world. And this is what we are working on. That this type of culture and they are really structured, and the division that I was with is most structured, and that's all I could say about that. But within that structure, it's the same thing. Are people volunteering their best? And and they say it's structured, and even in the US we talk about government, it's like the jobs are so routine and everything is so tight. But it's the same thing. Are we setting up a culture where people feel trusted? Excuse me. Where they're volunteering their best efforts, where they have a culture where they're aligned to achieve, where they are seen as a great organization, their employees are engaged, their customers love them. And honestly, and this is our definition of greatness, that they would miss the organization if they were gone. It's all the same, no matter how structured you are.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Vamos con la siguiente pregunta, la ponemos rápidamente en pantalla y vamos a ver de qué se trata. ¿Qué se transforma primero, la cultura o los sistemas diagonal procesos? Corey, please, what transforms first, the culture or the systems/processes?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. I don't know if there's what comes. I think you need to work with all of it. Okay. And the more you improve the culture, the more you're going to get people's talents and potential out of them. So this idea of creative collaboration doesn't happen unless people feel like they want to participate and they feel safe enough to participate. So if you are building new systems and processes, you might need those people to help build them. Having said that, it's such a good question that's asked, because you can go too far. You can have this, I have these great people, but we don't have the right systems or processes in place. Mm-hmm. So the people can only take it so far. So if you have antiquated systems or no systems, we say you're going to hit a brick wall, and the people will leave because they don't have, whatever the system is, we don't have a good communication system. We don't have a good expense system. We don't, whatever it might be. Now, systems are really interesting. And again, leaders are responsible for this, because we say great systems are enduring and the system can live beyond the leader. So again, I'm picking on myself too, but there's a lot of ego involved with leaders. And a lot of times for them to, like now with, artificial intelligence too, they are concerned about building a system or a process because it makes the work easier, and they feel, it's not necessarily true, but they feel less needed as leaders. So their ego sometimes gets in the way of creating or updating systems that allows them to step back because of fear of their own jobs. Going back to leaders' mindset, it's a little scary. I get that. But when a leader is seen as optimizing the workflow to results by building a culture of people that want to volunteer their best efforts, are stepping up and saying, here's a system that really makes this go. And what's great is if I take a day off, it's okay. It's going to run without me. That's a legacy that a leader gets to make. And that's what they should be doing, more than, oh my goodness, I need to make sure I'm doing everything because that's how I get seen and recognized. It's not true anymore.
That was a good question, Corey, but your answer was even better. So thank you for that. I have a last question for you today. Tenemos una última pregunta esta tarde y está en pantalla. Franklin Covey posee algunas herramientas que pueda medir objetivamente en qué áreas necesitamos transformarnos con mayor prioridad. Corey, does Franklin Covey have any tool that can objectively measure which areas we need to prioritize for transformation?
Whenever we do any work, we do a lot of assessment to understand, so we're not a systems company necessarily. We help organizations achieve results through programs like our 4 disciplines, and then a lot of work around culture. We always do a lot of assessment to come in and see what needs, where the gaps are, both on the system side, on the people side. So we have a holistic view of what the organization needs to do to achieve very measurable results. And I know in Guatemala, our team there does a fantastic job helping organizations do that.
Thank you, Corey, for your time. Thank you for your valuable participation in this space. Your experience definitely have enriched our conversation. We truly appreciate your time. We appreciate your dedication. And we are hoping that it is November the 4th already, so that we can have you here in Guatemala.
I'm so looking forward to it. And thank you so much. And thank you everybody that was listening and for the great questions that you asked. I hope it was a little helpful. So thank you. Have a wonderful day and I'll see you soon.
It was a lot helpful for us. Thank you, Corey, for all your experience and for all the things that you told us today. Y bien, señoras y señores, agradecemos de esta manera a Corey su participación. Definitivamente podemos ver su experiencia, podemos conocer más allá de sus conocimientos todo lo que ella tiene para decirnos, lo que ha aprendido a través de esta gran trayectoria y que, señoras y señores, se va a complementar y se va a materializar este 4 de noviembre cuando Corey venga a Guatemala y usted puede ir a esta conferencia. Él puede, quitémoslo, debe ir a esta conferencia y por supuesto nosotros acá en Invitados BI queremos que usted vaya y tenemos 15 pases dobles. ¿Qué es lo que usted tiene que hacer para poder ganarse uno de estos 15 pases dobles? Pues nada, etiquete usted en los comentarios por qué le gustaría asistir al evento y a quién quisiera invitar, quién quisiera usted que fuera esa persona que se vaya con usted a la charla de Corey aquí en Guatemala el 4 de noviembre en el Hotel Westin Camino Real. Ahí tendremos la oportunidad de vernos, de poder asistir, de poder aprender muchísimo más de liderazgo, de poder evolucionar, de poder transformar nuestros equipos, nuestro sistema y nuestro negocio en general. Así que ya lo saben, la invitación está hecha y por favor participen. Esta es una charla que va a ser con traducción en simultáneo para que no se preocupen si ustedes no dominan el inglés. Vamos a tener a una traductora o traductor que estará, bueno, diciéndonos todo lo que Corey tenga para explicarnos en torno a este tema en español. Así que, señoras y señores, esta fue la invitación. Nosotros, como siempre, queremos agradecerles por estar en sintonía de Invitados BI, esta comunidad que nace justamente para llevar a todos ustedes estas buenas noticias, las cosas que suceden en el mundo, las diferentes tendencias que hay para poder evolucionar y transformarnos con las mejores herramientas de la mano de los mejores expositores como Corey, que nos estuvo acompañando en esta tarde-noche. Yo, como siempre, les digo gracias por habernos acompañado. Estén pendientes de las redes sociales de Banco Industrial para enterarse de las próximas transmisiones que tendremos. ¿Quiénes serán nuestros próximos invitados, invitadas? Bueno, usted ya sabe que, como siempre, tenemos contenido de mucho valor para todos ustedes. Soy Verónica de León Regil y esta fue una emisión más de Invitados BI.